Meeting to order. Ms. Shanks, can you call the roll?
Julie Hoffman.
Here.
Bruce Lenslutsky.
Here.
Greg Feller.
Here.
Kimberly Conklin.
Here.
Tammy Lavalette.
Here. Thank you. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Flags that way. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we are with you, Dr. Mountain, for Superintendent's Report.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hoffman. Good afternoon, everyone. What a wonderful day in the neighborhood. I will tell you, it's a historical day here in Sylvania schools. What brings me the most joy and pleasure today is that we had over 7,000 students return to our classrooms today after being out of school for over a year. And I am pleased to say relatively uneventful, and that's a good thing. I know that Mr. Zeroff and myself were in buildings today. I spent rather a large amount of time over at Arbor Hills with our road runners, and it was great to engage with our staff members and our students. For those who are watching, if you haven't had a chance, check out my Twitter account because there are a lot of pictures up about Arbor Hills. They started the year with a pajama day, which is a great day to welcome kids back, typical junior high. I loved it. But the nutrition folks were on board. They were participating. They were dressed up in pajamas, had time to talk to teachers to see how they were doing and how they were adjusting. I have to tell you, overall, students and staff were just happy to be back and having the kids in their classrooms and teaching. So it was good. Actually, I had one math class that I took a picture of. They were outside having math today, taking in some of the 71-degree weather, which was also fantastic. So we could not have had a better day to bring our students back to school for the reopening of all day, every day for our students here in Sylvania. In addition, a couple of other things that I wanted to share with folks in preparation of our students returning to school, our custodial staff really went above and beyond. They actually applied their second round of an antimicrobial spray, and that's a hard word for me to say. I don't know why, but it is. But what it is a spray that actually adheres to our hard surfaces that stays in place for about 3 months. And with that, what it does, it allows germs and other like bacteria. It actually is like a layer of protection so that those germs do not adhere to hard surfaces. So it's an action step that we took as part of a mitigation strategy. And we're proud to say in Sylvania, we were using this type of technique prior to COVID. But I think in anticipation of knowing that we were going to have so many students back in our schools for the first week, we wanted to be proactive. So we gave our classrooms another dose of this spray. So thank you to our custodians to make sure that they went above and beyond to make sure our students and staff were safe. Something else I would like to share, I had the pleasure of meeting with Tom Burtworth today over at the Sylvania STEM Center. Boy, what a fantastic learning space for children. I wanted to play with all the Legos and the robots, and they had so many things to put engaging, but that's my learning style. I like hands-on, and I have to tell you, it was a positive conversation how we can work together to not only keep what we have in place for our students here in Sylvania, but how we can expand a STEM program in our schools for all students. Right now, we have a couple of schools that participate with the STEM Center, and it really is funded through our PTA organizations, our parent-teacher organizations. And my one concern about that is I want access and an opportunity for all students. We have some elementary buildings that have 700 students in them. We have others that have 300 students in them. And sometimes their coffers aren't as equally as deep. So Tom and I talked about how we could put something in place that was short-term, sustainable, as well as long-term with sustainability so that all of our students have access and exposure to STEM curriculum. That's really exciting, and it's an innovative practice. A lot of area districts have something in place in their curriculum on a regular basis for their children. I want to bring that here to Sylvania, so I look forward to having a partnership with him. I know that he also is talking with SAJAR in addition to the rec center to possibly partner with them in the future as well. So anytime that we can partner with community organizations to bring more opportunities to our children and our families, it is a win-win for all. I also want to share that Ms. Hoffman and I had an opportunity to meet with the YMCA and the Jewish Federation last week, looking at some opportunities to partnership in the future there as well. And the other thing I think that's really important that our parents know that have an opportunity to watch this, either watching it now or later, is that we are continuing to fine tune our summer program. Right now we're calling it the Summer Swing. We haven't committed to that name, I don't believe as of yet, but we're looking forward to getting information out to our parents as soon as possible so that they can register their children for the summer program. It is by invitation only because we have limited staffing, and we want to make sure that we are able to meet the needs of all of our children that have the greatest need due to the loss of instruction due to the pandemic. On a happy note, I had the pleasure last week of traveling around to about 6 or 7 buildings with Amy Addington. I'm thrilled about the opportunity about the superintendent's annual art show, and we will have that again this year, which is another bullet point to say we're on our way back. It's a sign of normalcy, a sign of what's typical, a sign of what we do. And there were some hard decisions to make. We have so many talented students in our district. They're creative. Just so much student artwork to select from. I personally still do a lot of stick figures, so I was impressed when I saw a picture from a second grader that looked like I still can't accomplish what they accomplished on. It was just amazing. But we are excited to bring that to our families. I can't recall the date off the top of my head.
The month of May.
The month of May.
It will be spread out over weeks and over several businesses.
Okay, so it's the month of May, and we will not have a reception this year, but the artwork will be on display in several businesses downtown Sylvania. And the good thing is, even though we are not able to have a reception, I plan to do a virtual kickoff for the art show to let our families and our community members know to come on out and see the talent of our Sylvanians. And then on a final note, I would like to say that we will be joining as a school district the Sylvania Expo, which is, I believe, April 13th. No, April 10th. I always mess that up. Thank you, Amy. April 10th, we will have a table over at the center. Is it Tamo Center? And I'm thrilled that we will participate in that activity again this year. So come on out and stop by our booth, learn more about our schools. Actually, I am going in a little bit of a different direction this year, as I've asked some of our administrators to man the booth along with Amy and myself, because I think it's important that our community members engage with our school administrators. So Mr. Zeroff created a Google Doc, and a few of them will sign up and spend a shift greeting our community. And I told them if they were unavailable on April 10th, there'll be another opportunity for them to engage with our community at another time in the near future. But I really think it's important that our community members get a chance to engage with our principals in the district. And that wraps up my superintendent's report.
And I don't want to volunteer us, but I think if you wanted any board members to take any shifts,
That would be great.
I don't have my calendar in front of me, but maybe we'd be available, some of us, to
Super. That would be
slot in
great.
now.
Mr. Zeroff, can you share that?
Share that with them, yep.
Perfect. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
The shifts are 45 minutes, so nothing too much. And I think it's from 9 to 3. Give you a ballpark. All right.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Absolutely. My next item this evening, I have the 2 representatives, Michael and April, from the Mad Ave group, here to give a presentation. As the board knows, I've already spoken quite a few times about how I would like to work with someone that can work with our district that will do a great job of highlighting who we are and the type of quality education that we provide to our students on a regular basis. So I've invited the two representatives here to go over a proposal for what that could look like to really engage our community and highlight who we are and what we're about throughout the community and beyond. They have a PowerPoint presentation to present, and they also gave each of you a packet that's a spiral packet here that it's a breakdown of what they offer and what they're looking for. I want you to know that this is a proposal, so you'll have an opportunity to ask any questions, ask for more information, or ask for clarification in any way that you see fit. So Michael and April, we'll turn it over to you. Thank you so much for being here this evening. While they're getting set up, I do want it noted, I think it's important to note that Mad Ave Group is a local business located in downtown Toledo. They also have done some work, quite a bit of extensive work with Toledo Public Schools. So they do have experience working with schools and promoting the best about what schools have to offer. Certainly. Okay, all righty. Is it loading? Everybody goes to the back. Slow as Methuselah. Just slow as Methuselah.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for giving us the time and opportunity to come speak with you today. We're excited about the opportunity to work with Sylvania Schools. We have a lot of employees that are residents or have kids in the school system, so they're very in tune with how everything has been and have good input as to their vision or perspective on where we can also improve from a marketing and advertising standpoint and brand. We've got a brief agenda today, very abbreviated. We didn't want to go overboard and take up too much of your time, so we're going to go just quickly who we are, our approach, recommendations, a little bit about our team, and then into the deliverables that we think Sylvania Schools could most benefit from. As Dr. Motley pointed out, we are here in Toledo. We've been in Toledo for 31 years, just celebrated our 30th last year. And we're one big agency that consists of 6 smaller boutique agencies underneath, each with their own discipline and expertise. I'll quickly just touch on them. Marketing management is an outsourced marketing manager program where you could have a virtual marketing director or somebody that's part of your team. Designed Influence is your traditional ad agency. It does design, advertising, and branding. Touchstone Digital is our everything digital agency. Sensory Max is sensory marketing. It's everything when you walk through the front door, more in a retail environment. Probably won't have too much exposure to that. Business Voice, that's where we started 31 years ago, and it's our color experience marketing agency. And then Mad Ave Collective exclusively works with nonprofits and is our give back arm to the community. So our approach, we are big believers in discovery. Understand all the perspectives of every stakeholder you have, and everybody that should contribute to what happens on the backside. We never do that big reveal. You'll know where we're going and how we're getting there all the way along. It's seldom that we're going to have the big approach with the frame piece. So in our pre-discovery meetings, as we'll call it, with Dr. Motley, we were able to understand some of the issues and concerns and her vision for the future of Sylvania schools. And it's with those goals and our partnership in mind that we want to make sure that we proceed in that path with our expertise centered around information, education, and storytelling. We always believe, especially in a school system, there are beautiful nuggets and stories that everybody should know, and they always get buried after any bad news that may come up. So we want to put a spotlight on there and control the narrative as much as possible. Knowing the priorities and limited resources of a district, we thought a phased approach would be best. We are big believers in setting up a brand that is powerful and speaks to the organization of who you are, and positions you to the public on how you want to be perceived. So we are looking at brand positioning and refresh as a phase 1, and we'll go in a little more detail here in a minute. And then in phase 2 is, if you know where you want to go, the next thing you need is how you're going to get there. So looking at a roadmap that will take you to that path. When we put together, whether it's a marketing plan, communications plan, anything like that, that's your deliverable. And whether you execute that internally, hire us to do it, take it to another agency outside, hand them that plan to execute, but it gets your goals done. And everybody in our organization is tasked with reaching our clients' goals through strategies and tactics that are the best use to get to those end goals. So, phase 1 recommendations. So this is the strength of the brand, and we, in talking to Dr. Motley and our Chief Brand Officer and Chief Creative Officer internally, it made sense to have a brand refresh at this point, an evolution of the Sylvania School brand that sets the path for the next decades to come. We also feel that creating an announcement around there. So if you have the brand, now you have to explain the why, right? People want to know, why is it new? What changed? So we're going to have that story told through video, and as well, it can be repurposed on other platforms like the web and social. The creation of your standards, your brand guideline book that you can take to anybody, whether they're applying your logo on a shirt, printing it on a billboard, putting it on the side of a car. Those standards are very important to make sure that the execution of your logo and your brand is adhered to. The stationery package, that's the standard that comes along with any time we touch a logo. So your business cards, your letterhead, your envelopes, making sure that all comes together. And then even though we typically aren't putting the deliverables up front, it made sense knowing that you've got a community newsletter that you need to have done and some PR materials. We're also including those. So with that, I will turn it over to my colleague, April, who actually heads up our marketing management agency.
Good evening, everyone. So as Michael talked about, phase 2, we're recommending a multifaceted communication plan. So we will start that process doing a lot of discovery and research. We're going to talk to a lot of people. We're going to look at what you guys are doing today, and then we're going to start our work on developing our recommendations. We're also going to come up with a situational analysis. So we're going to do some research. As with any community, there are a lot of different perspectives out there. So we want to talk to different groups of people, find out how they feel, what they're thinking, that sort of thing. We'll list out key challenges and a district SWOT analysis from our point of view, as well as the audiences that we are interviewing. We'll also divide those audiences out, and we'll start talking about objectives for each of those audiences and how we need to talk to them. And then as we start to develop that plan, we're first going to come up with our overall communication plan goals. So what do we really want to achieve with this plan? And then based on that, we're going to start outlining the strategies. So those are the methods that we'll use to accomplish those goals. And then we'll also get into detail, and underneath each of those strategies, we'll have several tactics. So those are basically those actions that we're going to take to implement those strategies and overall achieve those goals. And then there'll be kind of a nice wrap-up summary of it all with a communication matrix or calendar. So that will talk about, what types of information we'll need to be sending out, the format of that, the channel that will happen on, or channels, and then that frequency of distribution. So that will be the deliverable that Michael talked about. Next, I'd like to cover who's going to be a part of your team. So obviously you see Michael and myself up there kind of leading the front. Your day-to-day contact, if you were to go with us, would be Kara Momini. Kara is actually a graduate of Sylvania Schools. So she will be the day-to-day person. She'll be the one kind of heading up that plan and kind of bringing all the pieces together. She's great at the project management side. And then over on the right side there, you have both our Chief Creative Officer and our Chief Brand Officer that Michael had mentioned. They'll be heavily involved in your team as well. Of course, Terry helping to develop that brand. Scott is great at messaging, so he'll be heavily involved in that. And then behind all of that, there'll be a lot of writers, designers, and other supporting staff members to help. All right, Michael, want to talk about deliverables?
Thank you. Helps. And we talked about a lot of this. So starting off with the logo refresh and possibly looking at a tagline. Introducing a tagline would be the right time to do it with the refresh of the brand. Talked about the brand standards guide and stationery package. The newsletter design, that would be that template that could be used internally by your team. So it could be changed and tweaked as needed. But we set up the templates to start. The logo launch video, and that can be a discussion with Dr. Motley, board members. It can tell the story of the future of Sylvania Schools. So you can set that tone now. The promo items we talked about and identified just at the start is a press wall that can be used for any kind of outgoing communications you may do through video. Retractable banners that could be used offsite if you're out in the public, or can be used at press events, and then a tablecloth for the same use. Research and development, project management, those kind of go hand in hand, and that's a lot of the pre-discovery and discovery that we're going to go through in the beginning. And then vendor qualification and act as your liaison. So not only will we help in identifying the most economical or right printers to use, or the right people to use for promo, but we'll act as that liaison too. So nothing gets lost in translation. We're able to walk them through the process of exactly what you're looking to get done too. Back to April for phase 2.
All right, so phase 2 deliverables, we'll have a big discovery meeting. My guess would be a lot of you would be involved in that. That's usually a couple-hour meeting where we will talk about a lot of different things and get everybody's perspectives and thoughts on where we need to go. And then we'll also follow that up with key personnel interviews. So we won't have necessarily every segment in that initial discovery meeting, but we want to make sure we get feedback from people at different levels and different areas within the organization. So we'll do some one-off interviews after the discovery meeting. Like I said before, we'll also be looking at everything you guys are doing. So just from an audit standpoint, you know, how your communications are today, what that brand and collateral looks like, what your website or digital platform looks like. And these are very just high level audits, just, you know, looking at what you're doing so we understand how everything's happening today and what maybe tweaks we can make for the future. And then we'll do some market and demographic research on the community and the different segments within there. We'll make sure that we have some community research where we're talking to people, getting those different perspectives that I talked about. That situational analysis, key challenges, and SWOT analysis, and then dividing those audience into different segments, along with that defined messaging by audience. And then that overall plan goal definition, laying out those strategies and tactics, that communication matrix and calendar, and then lastly, a budget identification for all the communication recommendations that we have. With that, does anybody have any questions for Michael or I?
April, could you talk a little bit about the timeline, or Michael, for phase 1 and phase 2?
In phase 1, it's less about outside surveying of entities. It's more of your vision. So we work closely with the board and Dr. Motley to understand your vision for the brand for the future. And that's when our chief brand officer and the team of designers will get together, and we lock them in a closet to come up with the best concepts and ideas to get back to you. That process from discovery to what we'll call a first draft is typically a couple weeks. And then to get to a final would be another week from there. So all in with discovery, you're usually about 30 days.
And for part 2, phase 2?
Yep, then for phase 2, we start with that initial discovery phase. So that'll be probably a 2 to 3 week long process. And then we kind of come back and get all the team together and take all that information that we gathered and start developing that plan. We do keep you involved along the way, so we want to make sure that we're on the right track and heading in the right direction. So we'll have kind of intermittent steps where we'll talk about, where we're at, what some of our initial thoughts are on goals and strategies. And then after we're all on the same page with that, we'll start outlining all the details of the plan and the calendar. And overall, the whole process would be about 2 months.
So I have a pretty general question. I understand there's a difference between a brand and a logo. Obviously, the logo is a logo. So you talk a lot about brand. Tell me what you mean by brand.
Yeah.
I mean, we're a school system. We are what we are. We have no new products. We are, So what does the concept of brand mean for us?
Yeah, it's your brand story, your brand positioning. It's what sets you apart from other school districts that may be under consideration. So it really is who you are. If you walked into a room and you are Sylvania Schools, who is that person? What do they represent? What do they stand for? The qualities. So between the storytelling and the identity is where you get the full brand experience.
So in rebranding, we're talking about a new logo and possibly taglines, and what else? I mean, what else rebrand? Just the type of information we put out? Or?
Yeah, with the brand refresh that we're talking on here, it's pretty much tied to the logo because the tagline could be in there. That ties it more into a full identity for brand. But we're really talking about refreshing the logo, and keep in mind, we're very respectful of the history. So it's not something that we just ball it up and throw it over our shoulder. We're very conscious of what you have and the equity build up through that logo and that brand. So when we come back, don't expect it to look like, new Coke. This is going to be something where we would have the story that we tell on how we got there and what that positions and what that means for the future. But it really takes into consideration, it's not just artwork. And I think that's probably the key thing you're looking for. Anybody can just make a Sylvania Schools logo. Like I've got a cousin who just started doing design last year. Would be great. But to be able to tell your story and have an identity of why that's your logo, why that means who you are, that's where the expertise comes in. We've got a wealth of that. If I could just take a minute, I've got a reel of some of our work that we can show you that just kind of encapsulates everything from design to video to brand protection. We run the gamut when it comes to companies that we do that for, so it'll just give you a snapshot kind of who we are. We will follow that up with an email. As Dr. Motley said, we do a ton of work for Toledo Public Schools. We ran their virtual graduation. We ran the communications for working with their team to come back to class in yellow and red and everywhere it went in between along the process, and making sure that the community was informed. The communications and storytelling continued and happened, so there were tons of shining lights throughout the pandemic where the district stepped up and should be commended for it. So we wanted to make sure those stories got out there too. Plus all the stories of the kids that were doing wonderful things along there. Good.
Do you have any other questions while he's setting up?
You talk about like getting stories out there. How is that? Are you talking Facebook? Are you talking newsletters? Like, how is that? What does that look like?
Yeah, so that's really what we're going to determine as we go through discovery and start building that plan. What are those different types of messages and those stories that we're going to tell? And then how are we going to get those communicated out to the community? So there's going to probably be a lot on social, I would imagine, website, there's so many different ways that we can use those stories, whether they're in video form or through press releases, things like that.
One of the things I did share, Mr. Feller, with Mad Ave is a desire to get a pulse of all of our constituents in our community. We know that if you are 75 or older, not everybody,
Just gonna ask that.
we have some very savvy seniors, but some aren't logging on to Facebook or our webpage or our district website or what have you. How do we reach that clientele to allow them to be more informed about what our students are currently doing in our schools? I know COVID looks very different. I know we perform at the senior center. I know we engage our students there, but what about the hard copy in their mailbox? I think some data that I shared with Mad Ab is at the last levy campaign, I believe it was either 72 or 74% of our community do not have students in our schools. So how do we tap that community person to let them know what's happening at Southview or Whiteford or Northview, and have them be involved and just aware more often than just the random shot in the arm? But how do we do it consistently?
So part of this is helping us figure out how to reach that audience.
Yeah, not only the content strategy, but then the publishing strategy too. So what's the content that's being created and what's the consistency that's being created at? So you have an expectancy to create an audience. And then the publishing, where are all the channels that's going to be published through? You look at districts like Cleveland, who, I mean, they pretty much have started a news bureau now, where they're fielding and sending out cameras, and they've got TV station, kind of a field going on there, doing a great job. So creating consistent content, releasing it on a regular basis, and making sure we're hitting every channel to be able to reach everybody, not just parents, not just students, but everybody, taxpayers alike. Any stakeholder in the district should have access to your content.
One more quick question while we work on this. So it talks about in phase 1 deliverables stationery package. I'm assuming that includes the logos and whatever. It does include the actual stationery envelopes, all that kind of stuff, right?
The printed pieces, no.
Yeah.
It's the design of
Right.
them. We'll
Okay.
procure the print cost for you, or if you have a printer that you already use, or if you do it internally, we can always connect the dots on that for you as well, but that's the design
Okay.
cost for it. There we go.
So it does include like the website.
I'll have to ask. I don't know.
We can try and use our own website.
A snapshot of some of our. Any other questions?
Yeah, how does this coordinate into with our existing website? Like, is part of this a new website? We can use our existing. How does that work?
So that'll come from all the discovery and planning. They'll come back and say, you know, here's the recommendation is to have a new website. The recommendation is to change your navigation or structure, add some additional pages for communication tools. It runs the full gamut there. Until we go in and do that full discovery, we wouldn't be able to tell you for sure, one way or the other. We're very respectful of, you know, there's some places that they're like, we just built our website last year or something.
Yeah.
We're very conscious of that. We don't make recommendations for the sake of making recommendations. It would be with purpose
Right.
or intent that we'd be able to explain.
And if we had to make changes to the website, that wouldn't be part of this.
It wouldn't be included in this. Like I said, kind of at the onset, everything that's going to go into your communications plan is going to be your roadmap, whether you execute it internally with your current vendor, an outside vendor, or us. That's your plan. That's your roadmap.
Okay.
You take that wherever you want to go with it.
So in terms of, I mean, we would get the, whatever we do, rebrand or logo or taglines, we'll get the graphics and all the stuff that we can plug in where we need to.
Yep. Every format file you could possibly need, and all the unique ones that may be in some of the softwares you use or some of the applications we provide that.
One of the things I shared with Mad Ab is that we are actually working on redesigning our website right now with eSchoolView. We went back, and I think the last time it had been updated was 2010, 12? It's been a minute. And so I've made some suggestions. Instead of static pictures, I gave them examples, Cheryl and Amy and Darren, to look at other videos that have, you can do video. When you land on the web page, you can do video. And how can we start uploading video of our kids getting off buses, or a football play, or a basketball game, or cheerleaders, or the orchestra, and dropping that into our website. That type of development can be done through eSchoolView. They will also run our own analytics. And it's ironic because I talked to April last week saying, "What, I'm not quite sure about the website piece," because we are in the middle of already doing that work. So we would want them to come in on the tail end to say, now once we've redone the website, what else can we add to it? For example, our quick drop-down menu. Right now, we really don't have a quick drop-down, quick links, or an index that a parent can log in and go, I want to know about shop records. Where do I click? We don't have that on our current website. So we've already started to work on improving that. The other piece is adding an intranet. That's something when I came to Sylvania, I talked about having that back page for our employees. It's a whole nother page that lives behind the web page to make it user friendly. So we're already doing that work. This would augment it if we find it necessary. If not, we find that we're rolling good and we're strong and we can get it accomplished through our current partner, then that would be a piece which I told them I wasn't even sure we would need to do that, and we would tease that out at a later time.
And even through lots
In
of
an unprecedented
our conversations that we'll be having with people, I mean, people love to give their opinions. So we'll get lots of ideas back, and then you can, decide to add those in, or however you'd like to address them.
I think that we're fortunate to have a very engaged community
Yes.
and engaged people that will be able to give us some feedback on where we need to improve in our promotion and our communication, especially of our students and our staff and the wonderful things we have here in Sylvania schools.
Could I take another minute and a half just to show you? I'm kind of proud of it since I led the helm on it, but throughout the pandemic into the graduation process for TPS last year, if I could show you a minute and a half of kind of like what our team, and it really was every person in our building, with 43 employees right now, and they were all involved in some piece, like a little snapshot.
In an unprecedented year where life was turned upside down, the graduates of Toledo Public Schools still prevailed. With the district facing immense pressure from the community to act in a big way, a campaign was born to virtually graduate over 1,000 seniors. With 10 high schools within the district, there were major hurdles in coordinating the video production involved in providing each school a unique experience. Pre-recorded socially distant speeches for the valedictorians, salutatorians, principals, teachers, community leaders, the mayor, and superintendent were all part of it.
Hold you down. You become your own pandemic within this place.
And a few strings were pulled along the way to make it great. A big challenge was identifying graduates and matching them up with user-submitted photos and bios. A professional photographer was also provided at each school location for students that wanted to participate. The 10 virtual graduations were aired on local television, Facebook, and YouTube, which garnered the attention of thousands across the world. Every graduate was given a yard sign and t-shirt to help celebrate their accomplishments. And in an effort to safely present graduates with their physical diplomas, an optional drive-through ceremony was coordinated, allowing seniors the opportunity to receive their diploma in person. And in some cases, we would go to them. We may not have solved the pandemic, but having the opportunity to show these graduates that they matter was all worth it.
We strongly feel Sylvania has those messages, they have those stories within the district, and to be able to tell them would be a privilege to be able to be involved and get that narrative set with the community, to get the full one Sylvania community behind Sylvania schools. Any other questions for us?
I have a quick question. It's probably maybe for you. So we talked a little bit about, you know, getting who we are out there and the tagline, who we are. But should we, it kind of maybe, should we do the strategic plan first? I mean, I know it's going to push it off a little bit, but should the strategic plan come first?
This will coincide actually with the strategic plan. We
Okay.
actually talked about that too,
Okay.
as one can't precede the other. Like, I didn't want to get out there with, hey, we have this great tagline and we have this, and the
Right.
strategic plan takes us in another direction.
Right.
So some of this work we will be able to do early. Some of it we need to run through the strategic plan committee, because we want to add value to those voices at the table as well.
Okay.
Thank you all very, very much.
One more. Can we get some samples of some stuff you've done?
Yeah, we'll send you
Okay.
all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
We'll have links for you
I
to
actually
watch.
told them I had a vision of us walking downtown Sylvania and us talking about the great schools that we have here, and having possibly, I think they brought up some air shots of our buildings while I'm walking downtown Sylvania, talking about how great our community is and what we have to offer as an educational platform, and our tradition here of an excellent education. I mean, it's legacy. That's what we have here. But I kind of want to walk downtown and I'll have to say what I really want to say off record, because I'm a competitive gal and I know there's a neighboring district that does it well, and I want to do it better.
All right, one other quick thing, 30 seconds, is so every year for the past 6 years, we've done a kickoff video for the school year, and announcing, get the public excited, the students excited, the staff excited, return of the next year. What a unique situation we had coming up into 2021 of how to get any excitement from home. And the one thing we noticed in filming the 11 schools' fails and sales and hearing what they had to say, I'm sure you have all sat through many commencements. And in a lot of them, it's reflection and what we did and how we got here. And it was amazing that every balance sale in their speech had something that was forward-looking and giving advice to the incoming class. It really was just visionary. It was pretty cool. So what you're going to see is just what we put together, clipping the actual speeches. These were not staged. They were not, we didn't even know this was a thing until 2 months after it was already done. And we created it into one speech that was going to launch the school year.
Patience. Every generation has that one moment in their lifetime, that one critical moment that defines who they are as people.
The circumstances we face do not define us as people.
We have the power to become great.
To accomplish great things, we must not only act, but also dream.
Because truly the sky is the limit.
You have a chance to make a difference in the world. But we are always learn from our mistakes and will again standing tall.
The important thing is that you keep trying.
It's not just about the destination, but about the journey along the way.
Take a moment and breathe. Plan for the future. Experiences we have gone through will help us for whatever the future has in store. Don't ever let anyone tell you that you can't do something.
Work for whatever it is you wish to do or become and make those who support you proud.
Hard work really does pay off. We are strong and resilient. We are blessed. We are TPS proud. We are TPS proud.
We are TPS proud.
We will continue to make you proud.
As you see there, we just actually walked TPS through a rebrand a year and a half ago, where they went from the TPS Proud bubble graphic kind of thing they had into a much more cleaner, sophisticated logo and representation, which identifies the future where they're going with college and career ready, the arts, and entertainment as well, and music, the arts. And athletics and competition too. We wanted to make sure we had that. So that was their process they went through.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, April. We appreciate your time this evening. Any other questions or comments before we finish our agenda?
Yeah, we appreciate you coming. That was great. Thank you. Tammy, do you have any questions? She's saying no.
I think she's saying no.
Okay.
As we continue through the superintendent's report, I'm recommending that item 2.3 Actually, we're going to roll that into next month. We wanted to take some time and collect some additional information. So actually, we would like to suspend item 2.3 until next month. Moving on with the agenda, item 3.1, I am thrilled to announce recognition of achievement commendations for some of our high school students. We have several students listed on our agenda at Northview and at Southview High School that earned a score of 26 or above on the ACT. I believe at Northview they took the test in February, and at Southview I think it was December, and we are thrilled about that. And also we had some additional Southview students who earned a 26 or higher on their February test date. So we are so proud of our Cougars and our Wildcats for just really demonstrating their academic talent. So congratulations to those young women and men.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions?
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Ms. Shanks?
Julie Hoffman,
Yes.
Ruslan Slutsky,
Yes.
Tammy Lavalette,
Yes.
Kimberly Conklin,
Yes.
Greg Feller.
Yes.
Okay, this is the first opportunity for public participation for items which are on the agenda. Seeing none, we will move on to you, Ms. Shanks.
Thank you. I would like to ask the board to approve on a consent agenda basis items 5.1 to 5.3. 5.1 are the minutes from the special meeting held on February 3rd, the work session held on February 8th, and the regular meeting held on February 22nd. All members were present. 5.2, the treasurer's report for the month ending February 28th, 2021. And 5.3, the availability of funds for then and now invoices in excess of $3,000. And 5.4 is the consent agenda action.
I'll move for approval on a consent agenda basis, items 5.1 to 5.3.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? Ms. Shanks?
Greg Feller,
Yes.
Ruslan Slutsky,
Yes.
Julie Hoffman,
Yes.
Kimberly Conklin,
Yes.
Tammy Lavalette.
Yes.
Okay, we are back to you, Dr. Motley.
Thank you, Ms. Hoffman. Item 6.1, we recommend approval for the acceptance of gifts. We have a donation of the book Groundwater for the 21st Century, a primer for citizens of planet Earth from the Ohio Federation of Soil and Water Conservation Districts. And this was donated to the Southview High School Library Collection.
I'll move approval. Thank you.
I'll second. Any other comments or questions? Ms. Shanks?
Ruslan Slutsky,
Yes.
Julie Hoffman,
Yes.
Tammy Lavalette,
Yes.
Greg Feller,
Yes.
Kimberly Conklin.
Yes.
Thank you. We are recommending approval of item 6.2, the summer school handbook for the 2021 school year for students in grades 8 through 12. This really outlines the classes that we will offer this summer for students in those specific grade levels.
I'll move approval.
I'll second. Nope.
Any comments or questions? Ms. Shanks?
Greg Feller,
Yes.
Kimberly Conklin,
Yes.
Tammy Lavalette,
Yes.
Julie Hoffman,
Yes.
Ruslan Slutsky.
Yes.
Thank you. I recommend item 6.3, which is a resolution of urgent necessity for the McCord gym floor. I did mention this in soup notes most recently that the gym floor at McCord needs to be replaced. Currently, it's being held together by, I believe, wax, quite honestly. We are not only using this room for PE, but we also are using this space for an extended area for our students during the pandemic so we can social distance a little bit better when we are teaching specific classes or having lunch. So I would recommend the approval of item 6.3, which is the resolution of urgent necessity for the McCord gym floor.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions?
Second.
How long is it going to take for them to get this done?
I want to say, let's see, I have the contract here. I will get back to you on that. I don't want to misspeak.
I'm just curious, they'll be done before the school year is over.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be
Okay.
started in June.
Okay.
So it'll get done over the summer.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
after,
Mhm.
before the, yeah.
Mhm.
Any other questions or comments? Ms. Shanks?
Julie Hoffman,
Yes.
Bruce Slutsky,
Yes.
Tammy Lavalette,
Yes.
Kimberly Conklin,
Yes.
Greg Feller.
Yes.
Thank you. Item 6.4 actually puts item 6.3 into motion. We would like to enter into a bid contract for the Harrison Floors Company to replace the McCord Gym floor.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Any comments or questions?
Do we get multiple bids?
You get 3 bids.
Okay.
Mhm.
Anybody else? Ms. Shanks?
Julie Hoffman,
Yes.
Greg Feller,
Yes.
Kimberly Conklin,
Yes.
Ruslan Slutsky,
Yes.
Tammy Lavalette.
Yes.
Next, item 6.5, I would like to recommend approval for the payment in lieu of parental contracts for the 2021 school year that was submitted to our transportation department, and these, once again, are renewals.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? Ms. Shanks?
Kimberly Conklin,
Yes.
Ruslan Slutsky,
Yes.
Julie Hoffman,
Yes.
Tammy Lavalette,
Yes.
Greg Feller.
Yes.
Thank you. Item 6.6, I recommend approval for the Ohio State Test Incentive Program for this spring. This program will help encourage our students in the fourth quarter to help them accomplish their graduation requirements in regards to the end of course exams. I recommend approval of this specific program so that we can ensure that our students graduate with the proper requirements and graduate on time.
I'll move for approval.
I'll second. Any comments or questions?
What exactly is the incentive program?
Mr.
I can
Zero?
expand on that. Yeah. So historically, it's an incentive program for the OSTs. We generally use those grades on the OSTs, a 3, a 4, or a 5, to replace the semester exam grade. Because we don't have semester exams this year to allow more time for delivery of instruction of our kids, we're using it not to replace fourth quarter grades, but to add a percentage to your fourth quarter grade in those subjects where you have the OSTs in. So long story short, first of all, in order to qualify, you need to at least have a 51% in the fourth quarter. If you get a 3 or higher, if you have a 51 to a 59%, you'll just get a P for the fourth quarter. Those students that have a 60% or higher, if you receive a 3 on your OST in that subject, it would add 5 points to your fourth quarter grade. If you receive a 4 or a 5, it would add 10 points to your fourth quarter grade. So, as Dr. Motley says, it's an incentive for graduation requirements. It kind of helps boost with the incentive kids to try, give more effort during the OSTs, as well as can boost your fourth quarter grade a little bit. So it's not a replacement like it would be an exam grade. It's just to add some points to your fourth quarter grade. So those fourth quarter grades won't be then distributed until early June once the OST results are back.
Any other comments or questions? Ms. Shanks?
Greg Feller,
Yes.
Julie Hoffman,
Yes.
Ruslan Slutsky,
Yes.
Kimberly Conklin,
Yes.
Tammy Lavalette.
Thank you. I would like to recommend item 6.7, the first read of a policy for the use of medications, more specifically, policy 5330. I would recommend the approval for a first read of the revision.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? Ms. Shanks?
Julie Hoffman,
Yes.
Ruslan Slutsky,
Yes.
Tammy Lavalette, Kimberly Conklin,
Yes.
Greg Feller,
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on to license items under Human Resources. This will be a consent agenda approval. Item 7.1 is a license resignation of a teacher at a second grade teacher at Central Trail Elementary School. Item 7.2 looks to approve license unpaid leaves of absences. Item 7.3 looks for the recommendation to approve the athletic volunteers for the 2021 school year. These specifically are softball coaches. And then also we have item 7.4. We have 2 new substitute teachers. Yay. And if you noticed on the agenda, there are no resignations of substitute teachers, so
Yay.
double yay. We are thrilled with that. And also finally, item 7.5, we also have some licensed innovative strategies grant. This is for the high schools, and this is in large part with the Office of Exceptional Children down at the Ohio Department of Education. We also have item 7.6, which looks to approve license extra duty pay. Item 7.7 would look to approve all of items 7.1 through 7.6 on a consent agenda basis.
I'll move approval of items 7.1 to 7.6 on the consent agenda basis.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? Ms. Shanks?
Ruslan Slutsky,
Yes.
Greg Feller,
Yes.
Kimberly Conklin,
Yes.
Tammy Lavalette, Julie Hoffman,
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on to Human Resources Classified. On a consent agenda basis, I'm seeking approval for item 8.1, which we have quite a few folks shifting around to different departments through our district, anywhere from bus drivers to cafeterias, and to also a school secretary for the summer. Item 8.2, we recommend approval of classified new hires, which we have 2 there, a paraprofessional as well as a custodian. Item 8.3, we have several retirements from Sylvania schools. Classified, we have quite a few folks. We have Tracy, I want to say, is it Creaky? Creaky, thank you. Tracy Creaky with 20 years in the Sylvania schools. We're happy that she is retiring, but we're sad to see her go. We have Terry Ann Fick, who has been a secretary level 3, 10 months at Sylvan, but 20 years with the Sylvania schools. So congratulations to her. Charmaine Hill, second shift custodian at Whiteford. She's had 28 years of service in our district. Wow, that's a great stretch. Thank you for your years of service to our students and our families and our teachers. And then Jolene Schock, also a second shift custodian. She spent 12 years here with Sylvania Schools and will be retiring from Southview effective just in about a week and a couple of days. She's leaving us April 1st. Also, item 8.4, we have a classified resignation. 8.5, we have a classified unpaid leave. Item 8.6, we recommend for approval for a substitute for the treasurer's office. This is the same individual who recently retired, but it's helping us with some bridging the gap, if you would, in some areas where we need just to plug some holes to make sure we have a smooth transition. And then, of course, item 8.7 is the consent agenda approval for the all aforementioned items.
I will move approval on a consent agenda basis for items 8.1 to 8.6.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? It's an impressive 80 years on those resignations. I mean,
Right?
those retirements.
Together.
80 years together.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty
Amazing.
impressive for 4. Okay, anybody else? Ms. Shanks?
Greg Feller,
Yes.
Kimberly Conklin,
Yes.
Tammy Lavalette, Ruslan Slutsky,
Yes.
Julie Hoffman.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're at board committee reports and announcements. We'll start with you, Tammy. Anything?
Greg and I attended the police committee meeting. It was informative.
We like that report. Okay. Ruslan, anything?
No.
Tim? No. Greg?
Nope, nothing new.
And I also have nothing new.
Did we want to
yes.
discuss the policy?
We do want to discuss the policy.
I would say from our policy committee.
Okay. Which we have tomorrow.
Yes, we do. We have a meeting tomorrow.
Just to be clear, that's just Greg and I have to attend that. Okay.
All righty. It was recently brought to my attention, as well as I believe yours, Ms. Hoffman, in regards to our policy for intra-district open enrollment for students in grades 9 through 12. I do have Tim here, who is going to take the lead on this conversation as to the history behind the intra-district enrollment policy, where we are now, and where it's going. We also asked Bob Velhurst to be here as well. He oversees the open enrollment applications, and I thought it would be best if they could share their knowledge, really, and their expertise in how this is rolled out. The current situation is that overall we have students who can open enroll from Northview to Southview, but not vice versa. And my understanding is some of this has to do with the student enrollment at both high schools and the difference between those enrollments. I do know there is some grandfathering language that's also included in the current policy as well. And personally, my philosophy is I'm not saying the policy is good or bad, but it is an opportunity for us to revisit every so often to make sure it's still working for us in the manner that we desire. This policy was last brought to the board in May of 2018. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tim and to Bob.
Thanks, Dr. Motley. I'll kick it off and just give the information that I have. I know Bob, our Director of Student Services, is in the trenches with this every year, predominantly this time of the year when it comes to open enrollment. And it kind of goes back specifically to at the conclusion of redistricting and what we wanted to do with open enrollment, focusing strictly on the high school. And this kind of in two parts: the policy 5113.01 intra-district open enrollment. And again, I'll just focus on grades 9 through 12, but originally going into the 18-19 school year, a student was allowed to continue if they were open enrolled at either of our high schools through their senior year. So you take that information, if you do the math, if you have a freshman who open enrolled, let's say I was a Northview student, I lived in Northview District and I was open enrolled to Southview, and I was a freshman going into the 18-19 school year. Currently I'd be a junior and I'd be allowed to continue with that open enrollment through my senior year next year. We did see after the initial redistricting discrepancy within our two high schools. I think we still see that now. Currently, as of the last enrollment report, Northview has right around 1,392 students. Southview has 1,064 for a difference of about 328, which is essentially another class. We added another layer to that policy going into the 1920 school year, which we still have in place now. We're just finishing up our second year of that, which states any student, and if you look at our open enrollment historically, and I shared this presentation with you, if you look at going back prior to 2017-18, you had 189, or I'll just take 17-18 in general, 189 Northview open enrollments to 72 Southview. 18-19, it was 141 to 92. So it was pretty lopsided for a handful of those years, specifically from 14-15 to up until last year, even a little bit this year. That trend is changing, and I think one of the main reasons for the trend changing is a second change of the policy that was made going into last year, where students could open enroll in the past prior to last year for pretty much any reason, whether it be academics, sports, friends, better fit, teachers, programs, special circumstances, social climate, et cetera, et cetera. Going into last year, we changed that because of the discrepancy in the enrollment, where students could still open enroll from Northview District into Southview for those reasons, but to come from Southview to Northview, there were three Bob and I call them buckets that you kind of have to abide by with the policy. That was a parental move, special education circumstance, or participation in a specific academic program that wouldn't be offered at Southview High School. I will say, with our second year of this, the proposed enrollment going into next year, based on we just had staffing at our high schools, going into next year, Northview is looking at 1,371 students. Southview is looking at 1,105 students. So difference of 328 this year, looking at a difference of 266 next year. Still a fairly large number, but those trends seem to be going a different direction as far as the enrollment goes. But more importantly, or specifically, I'll take our open enrollments for this year, and again, Bob can touch on that, because a lot of those individuals who fell within an initial process back in 18-19 who may be a junior and being a senior next year, but we had this school year 115 open enrollments to Northview, 78 to Southview. Next year we're looking at 67 open enrollments to Northview, 44 to Southview. So I would like to say, just looking at the data and the information, that trend, not only with the open enrollment, but potentially with our building sizes being closer, has to do with this policy that's in place. But again, it's just data and information that where we're at with things on what we've done to try and help that to level out the enrollment in both those high schools. Before Bob takes over too, just, I want to say that I was talking to Dr. Motley about this earlier. I mean, because of our higher enrollment at Northview, and this is my 4th year as the assistant superintendent, 3 years prior to this one when it comes to staffing. And we're always looking to add additional staff to Northview because of strictly the enrollment there, including a 5th counselor. Northview has 5 counselors, Southview has 4. This year was a little different. It was Southview actually came to the table with some requests based on their enrollment. Just the trends that are in place and some of the things we've taken on the last 4 years because of the higher enrollment at Northview High School. So I kind of rambled there, Bob. I don't know how much I may have stepped on your toes with that, but just any other information you want to provide that, as far as data collection that we have.
Right. No, that was good. The only thing that really I was going to add to that, and when you look at those numbers, and I'm going to say if you go back to like 17, 18, and move up that chart up to the current school year, you can see that slowly there's a change in trying to create some balance in regards to enrollment. When I look at the current school year, 2021, I only did the Northview numbers, and I don't know if this is a question that you might have, so I might answer it ahead of time. Well, we have 115 students who are open enrolled to Northview. Of that, I'm going to say we're top heavy with seniors. So there are 41 seniors. Then we drop down to 34 juniors. Then we drop way down, and I think the numbers drop drastically like that is an indication that I think people are understanding that I just can't go because I want to. There are reasons why, board-approved reasons why. So there are currently 26 sophomores, but only 14 freshmen. So as that number starts cutting back down, so if we're top heavy on the senior end, most of those are all renewals. So they've been there, they fit a original bucket. They've been there, and now they're seniors. So, and kind of the same thing with the juniors. So as those numbers start to drift out, I think the number disparity between Northview and Southview starts to balance. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, and I think what you're saying there goes back to that original 18-19. If you were there, you got to continue to renew your open enrollment.
So the seniors now, were they subject to these open enrollment rules their freshman year, or were they in the prior?
They were grandfathered in.
They were grandfathered in.
Yes, they were. The juniors now were actually.
So the juniors are the first class that were subject to these 3.
That had to fit in the bucket.
That had to fit in the particular
do the
three
It would
reasons.
actually be if this is the second year, it'd be the sophomores, right? It would've
Then we
been
started in
freshmen.
18? Or was it for the following school year we put it in?
We actually put it in,
Beginning of
it was almost like an extension of the policy for those 3 items we talked about. That actually started in 1920. So that started last year. So they would be sophomores. They would have been freshmen last year, sophomores this year.
And you may have said this, what do we have the numbers for the freshman class incoming Northview and Southview?
I don't have that in front of me right now. As far as the incoming freshmen, Northview, Southview,
on the enrollment part,
No, next
just
year.
overall enrollment.
Do we have those numbers? Do we know what it
I
looks like?
don't know if that's would that be in Doris's
It would.
report?
Yeah, you'd have to sort out though McCord because they split. You could figure it out
Right.
between Arbor Hills and Timberstone, but because McCord splits, I don't think we could find that out for you.
Okay.
But the numbers for the 21-22 school year, those 67 and 44, those are what have already been approved for next year. So that's not like a guesstimate. We have already taken care of open enrollments for next year.
And those open enroll requests were subject to those 3 rules.
Going into next year,
Going into
yes.
next year.
Yes.
Yes.
And are there exceptions to that? People that didn't fit in one of those 3 buckets that, and if you know?
So what I can say is we've been very consistent with following board policy. Superintendents can always place a child where they choose to, for whatever their reason happens to be. And that's in the Ohio Revised Code as well.
Right.
So I believe there is currently 1 student who is a freshman at Northview that previous superintendent approved.
Okay.
Maybe she's it's a female, I think maybe she's a sophomore, I'm not sure, but previous superintendent approved that.
So
That was not Jane previous. That was
Not
Um,
Jane,
that would have been.
Adam.
not the interim,
Yeah.
right.
I think Tammy's asking a question. Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Are the capacities for the 2 schools roughly?
I was just about to
That's- I
ask
was
the
just gonna
exact same
ask, too.
thing. What is the difference in capacity for the building? Northview, Southview, can they fit the same amount of students?
Funny you should ask.
It is.
I just sent this to Greg this morning as well as to Wayne. This is old data, but it was updated per the 2008 bond issue, and it's dated May 4th of 2017. As far as number of classrooms, Northview has 66, and at the time, Southview had 63.
So they're
They're equal.
And I'm sorry, can you hear me still?
Sure.
Can we assume that the open enrollments from Northview are Southview residents and vice versa?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes. And currently, Tammy, it's my understanding that we do not accept open or intra-district enrollment. It only goes one way. It's Northview to Southview, unless it falls within those 3 buckets, and only really Southview to, no, I had that backwards. It is Northview to Southview, but not Southview to Northview.
unless you fit in those buckets.
Yes.
Correct.
But that was new as of 2018. Prior to that, there had been sort of a
Wide
wherever
open.
you'd like to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was a policy, but it was
Right.
basically, yes, you could
So-
choose.
So is the reason to limit it basically to keep Northview from being overcrowded? And is that the primary concern?
Well, I don't know that that's necessarily a question for me to answer.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
that's a-
that was part of the reasoning behind it, as well as the discrepancy in the overall.
So it's kind of a districting issue, where the boundary lines are.
Yeah,
Correct.
it kind of isn't a balancing, and I can say since
You
it's,
have some history.
I do have some history, and since the policy's before us, I can, because I'll support it, like we passed it, but I don't like it. I don't think it's equitable. I don't think it's okay to say, hey, if you're in, if you're in Northview, you can go to Southview, but not Southview to Northview. Because I do think, and I was a lot of years ago, I lived in Northview. It was not a good fit for me. And I open enrolled over to Southview, which was a much better fit for me. And those schools, I know it was 30 some years ago, but the schools are very different. I just think it fosters a good competition between the schools to, you know, attract students and keep students. And I don't want to lose students to privates because we don't let them go into Northview. I think it's very inequitable. I understand, I was here a couple years ago when this, you know, the big push on this policy to balance the numbers. I do get it. And that's important because we don't want, you know, Northview bursting at the seams. That certainly wouldn't be good for students, staff, anybody. But since we're talking about it, you know.
I do have those numbers for next year's for incoming
Okay.
ninth graders. Southview's at 306 and Northview's at 315. So a difference of
Not much.
9. Yeah, Southview 306, Northview 315 incoming freshmen next year.
Right. I mean, that's not a big difference. I mean, that's what, 9 students?
Yeah. And again, that's based on 111 open enrollments both sides compared to
Right.
193 this year. I don't know where they would go. You may know that. Predominantly looking historically, it's about 100 ballpark figure. 100
Right.
for
And
Northview.
you know, I do believe, I mean, I know a lot of people, you know, you love your school and you want your kid in your school. I've always said, like, I think for elementary school, once you're inside a building, I think you get the same experience, whether you're in Highland or Sylvan or Strand. I mean, there's a different feel to each school, but basically, you know, you're gonna. I just really am a believer. Northview and Southview are different schools, and my kids went to Northview, love it. My nephew is at Southview, love it. I just think they're, you know, sort of different. I don't want to see us losing kids to private schools because, you know, their choice, whether it's because they have friends or, you know, whatever the reason. So that's just my 2 cents.
Is there a specific recommendation before us at this point, or is it something
No,
we're
just
just
conversation.
just a conversation?
Yeah. What?
Just, and if I may, just as a historical point, because there's many newer board members that I'm not so familiar with. So from a historical perspective, when I first started here in Sylvania, there was no open enrollment allowed to Northview. It was closed because of enrollment. So at one point in time, they opened things up. And I think when things got opened back up, I can tell you that we started accepting open enrollment applications as soon as our office opened up on a certain day, and they were lined up out the door at Burnham. At 7:30 in the morning, they were lined up. As soon as they found out open enrollment was available to Northview, and that's when we started, those numbers kept going back up and up and up and up. That's just a historical number.
Was there no open enrollment to just Northview or both open enrollment
Northview.
to just Northview?
Because of population.
Just strictly because of enrollment, we could go back and look, but the numbers were very lopsided.
Yeah.
But I think also if you look at the open enrollment through the years, you're looking back like 12, 13, when it was pretty equal.
It was.
Who was going to each school. And, you know, I can't really speak to many of the administrators prior to Steve Swaggerty, but he knocked it out of the park at Northview. And I think he attracted people to Northview more so than maybe there were a few administrators that were in and out before there. And I think Casey Venz is doing exactly the same thing at Southview. You know, so I mean, that's what I mean about a healthy competition. Like the schools make each other kind of work for it, you know. So I look at those numbers and kind of give credit to Steve Swaggerty for that. But that's just me. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Julie. I mean, I don't have any history with, you know, what happened in the past, obviously, but when I heard that it was different for each school, I thought that's kind of odd. Why would we, you know, I agree. I think it should be fair. Now, I 100% agree with the building capacity issue. And if Northview is getting too many students where, you know, class sizes are getting big, more staff, then that's an issue.
That's a different issue.
But that's a different issue. But, you know, absent of that issue, I kind of think I lean towards, you know, having it equal.
I mean, would there be some way to do it where we could like look at the numbers each year and then, you know, like if you hit a certain number, then we can't take any more open enrollment at either school. But if we're below the numbers, and I don't know if 311 means or 315 means we have room or not, I don't know. But is there some way we could do it? Which I know is going to raise other issues because when you're the parent that just is past the cutoff, it's going to be like, can you do one more? I get that. But I have faith that you could say no, like, well, you got to follow the rule, and we can't have to hire more staff in a building
Right.
to allow open enrollment. Like I don't support that. Like I don't want to say it's a free for all and we just and I don't know, build more classrooms. I mean, can we do that? Tim, what do you say?
Well, I don't want to have it also for- you have siblings.
Hmm?
I don't want to also, if you have siblings coming in,
Right.
3 in a
Right.
row, I mean, you want to let all 3 of them go.
Of
Well, I think
that's
there probably should be some criteria, but and this kind of goes back to our facilities committee, where I think we need to know what our building capacities are, so we know what those numbers are.
Correct.
And we say, hey, we can go up to this much enrollment, then we got to stop it.
And what I would like to suggest, if our team could take some time and look at some options, because you're exactly right. There are more variables than just the numbers and who we're letting in and when. To your point, Ruslan, it is about family. If you have siblings and those siblings are going to be expected to go, they might not. But if they are, that has to be part of our
You
plan.
got to give them an option.
Correct. I think we also have to look at a couple of other pieces and parts where it's what the enrollment looks, because we do have some bubbles coming through. Right now, we have, I believe, an extra large class that's 400 at Northview that will phase out. But if there's another one that's going to be there, then we need to be cognizant of that. So
Right.
we need to come up with some type of formula, if we will, if you could allow us some time to look at some different
Like
ways.
48 hours? What do you?
Well, maybe.
Yeah, you can take some time.
Tomorrow morning?
Tomorrow night.
Yeah, tomorrow night, yeah, right. But no,
Is that not a
because
thing, Bob? You can't meet that deadline?
tomorrow night, we can
We
do
might
that.
be able to do that.
But if you could give us an opportunity to maybe do some research and look at some other options, because I do know other districts do go down the same path. And I would like to look at that and look at our numbers. And maybe part of the application process is to have families indicate if they have siblings, because that could make a difference. I think one of the things we're also concerned about, I'll be candid, is sports and where students want to go for sports, and if it will kind of bring an imbalance to our sports and athletic programs. I've heard rumor, I don't know because I've only been here under COVID, looking forward to a full season next year, but if kids are going to one school for football or one school for basketball, is it going to drain one school of their athletic talent because they feel they have a better opportunity at another school? I don't know if that's a thing. I don't know if it would be a thing, but we need to be proactive about how we would
Absolutely,
mediate
and,
that.
and maybe it is a thing, but I think the key thing, and you said in that sense for me, is the kid thinks he has a better opportunity. I don't want to, if you think you have a better opportunity over here, I don't want to tell you, no, we're not going to give you the best opportunity for you. But I do understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think that's the tricky walk, right? Because you're right, best fit is what's most important for
Right.
me. Best fit for
And-
a child in a school in an academic program.
And keeping our kids.
Keeping our kids, that's another thing too. So thank you for that conversation. If we could circle back with you and provide, not by tomorrow's meeting.
We'll see you
though.
at 10 tomorrow.
Yeah,
morning.
10 o'clock. And we won't have it by then for the
That's right, I
record.
actually thought we were going to have this conversation initially. So.
And that's all I had. Thank you.
All right, thank you. This is the second opportunity for public participation for items. No. Seeing none, I would move that we go into, are we going to executive session?
Yes, it'll be
Move-
brief. No action.
Move that we go into executive session for the purpose of
Property.
property, land.
And
purchase,
negotiations.
And negotiations. And we will not be taking action after.
Who's second?
Oh, second.
Ms. Shanks?
Thanks, Bob.
Julie Hoffman,
Yes.
Bruce Slonslisky,
Yes.
Tammy Lavalette, Kimberly Conklin,